Let me begin with a blessing. I send forth this seed offering of prosperity, knowing it blesses and multiplies all who are open to receive it. Good morning from Miami. Bonjour de Miami. Bon après-midi ou bonsoir pour vous dans d'autres parts du mundo. Hello, good afternoon, good evening from you guys everywhere else in the world. We got a gorgeous looking crew as usual. Welcome to the Prosperity Unchurch. This is a thought experiment I've been doing since the very start of the year, saying, what if we put together a unchurch, not a church, not a religion, but just a spiritual army of prosperity warrior, a prosperity army of people who would get together every week to study the principles of free enterprise, prosperity, circulation, and abundance. And I have to say that you guys have spoken. You hear about, TV shows like Star Trek that, got canceled, and then the fans were so crazy they made another network do it, or they made a movie happen, or get the series renewed or something. That's kind of what's going on here. I was challenging you guys about supporting the show, because obviously it's a lot of work. It's just a labor of love for me. And I do this on a love offering basis. I don't charge $37 a course or anything. I just say, go to randygage.com/go and give whatever you want. And then the other part is to share the show. I replay it on my YouTube channel. It's on the Power Prosperity podcast. So people who listen there, watch there, share those, share the posts on social media. And I think it was, maybe a lot of it was the topic last week, especially. The last 2 weeks have been really, I'm hearing from so many of you, and the support has been amazing. And by the way, I want to thank Jan Veneer in Colombia, Esser Curley here, and then Karina Gaston, who's in the Philippines, if I remember, who all really supported the show in a big way financially. So thank you for your support. And everybody, again, it doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to see people who give $1 or $5 just to show, hey, maybe I don't have a lot of money right now, but I believe in the principles you're teaching, and I want to circulate prosperity. So you guys have done amazing. And I don't know, that show last week, talking about what really matters. The stuff of prosperity that isn't the money and material things and the titles and the virtue signaling and the social media posturing. I don't know, it just really resonated with people's souls. So I heard from a lot of people that I haven't heard from in 20 years. And then people that, clients like Orion Saleh in Norway, who listens every week on his treadmill and onto the podcast, but I didn't know. And he called me up to talk about it. And like I say, people, family members, people I haven't talked to in 20 years. So I have this, what I told you last week or the week before was, hey, I have this vision that this show is going to grow and grow. And that you can see Jose Lopez is in the house, Paula Zaragoza, Jorge Melendez is doing his Sábado Gigante show right now, so he can't be with us. He took over for Don Francisco, I think. He does a show at the same time on Saturdays. But they're doing a Spanish version. A couple hours later, each week they follow up with the lesson from the last week, and they do it in Spanish. We have some people doing some watch parties around the world. And so my dream is that one day this is on Apple TV, or this is on Netflix, or this is on Hulu, or one of these streaming services, and that I'm doing it with a live audience here once we're post-COVID, and that it spreads around the world. And but that's my vision. What I told you guys is my vision doesn't matter. It's what's your vision of the show. And your vision of the show is bigger than mine. So I heard from so many people, and so many people have been so active circulating the prosperity that, you know, the show has been saved. I'm going to stop threatening every week to week. I'm just saying, hey, I guess the universe wants this. I need to go forward. But here is what I want to know is, what is the best time to do this for you guys who are on live? So I've been experimenting last week and today at 11 a.m. Eastern, which is New York time. We used to do it at 10 a.m. Then I would hear from people in California and Hawaii that it was too early, right? And if I go too later, we have a lot of people from Europe who watch, and Russia, Kazakhstan. So would you put in the chat? This right now is 11 a.m. New York. Do you want 10 a.m.? Do you want noon? Would you tell me in Eastern time? So Eastern time right now is 11 a.m. start. What time would you want to see the show where you would be able to see it live? And particularly for you guys who are watching on the YouTube, on the replay, or if you're listening on the podcast, hit me up on Twitter and let me know, or put it in the comments on YouTube. What time would be the best time every week, Eastern time, for you to participate live in the service? All right, let's see if we have a volunteer for your homework. Last week, I gave you some assignments, right? 3 of them, and we were talking about what really matters, right? And one of the assignments I gave you was to do some healthcare, some self-care for yourself. Anybody did that? I want to hear about it. What was it? The other assignment was for you to reactivate a paused relationship, which I think would be a huge prosperity win for a lot of people. And then the third assignment was kind of defining your 7 pillars, because I shared what I believe the 7 pillars of a prosperous life are. And put up your hand or the signal if you'd be willing to share, if you did the homework, please. But the thing I told you is that I wouldn't give you the hierarchy. I wasn't going to say, okay, and the number 1 important thing is this, and the number 2 most important thing is that, because I think that's different for different people. So anyone got any volunteer want to share? And let me get in the comments here so I can see what's up with that. 11 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 11 a.m., 11 a.m. Okay. So, okay, we got GD in. Okay, I'm going to ask to unmute. Jitty, okay, I see you every week. You always have a colorful shirt. So where do you watch from, and what did you do for the homework?
So I'm watching the UK, just outside London. It's a place called Hertfordshire. And in the homework, I did number 2. Well, I did the first 2. For self-care, I do a bit of running every other day for self-care. Some 5K, and I'm actually training for a half marathon for August next month.
Wow.
Yeah. And I reconnected with actually 2 people this week. The first person was a friend of mine who's a doctor, which I met in 2004. We had a conversation for half an hour, and I got a friend from a childhood for over 30 years who we spoke to for the first time in about 20 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, good for you. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. All right, so let's talk about the topic this week is healthy, harmonious relationships. And I think that's a nice progression from this topic that we did last week, which obviously relationships were one of those pillars that I think is really important. And like I say, I feel it's the glue that, just like this, every brick edifice or building needs that mortar in between the bricks that hold it together. I think the relationships are the mortar or the glue that hold together a prosperous life. So let's begin the discussion with how relationships contribute to your prosperity. First, I think they fill our need for social interaction. The human animal is a social animal. We need to be around other people. It's not healthy for us to be in isolation and of too much isolation. Some isolation is wonderful, right? But like anything, too much is not healthy. And I think if you look at all of the pandemic lockdowns that have been happening, and the rise in depression and mental illness, this is a real demonstration of that. There's been so many people. I have a dear friend who lives literally in the building across from me, and I haven't seen her for a year because she's been sheltered into her apartment. She's going through chemotherapy for cancer. So, highly vulnerable immune system. So we used to meet up in the gym all the time. Now I haven't seen her for a long time. My mother, it was, 6 months. I was, okay, do not leave the house, get your groceries delivered, get this delivered. I arranged, stuff to come to her because I didn't want her out there at her age being exposed to the virus and what it might entail. So that's really important, that there really is this need that we have for social interaction, and relationships really allow us to do that in a great way. There is, next thing I would say is, I believe there's a physiological need to touch people and touch each other in a healthy way. And speaking of touching, Jose, we do have a exhibitionist or porno star here that we might want to get to. I don't know, or somebody just putting all kind of crazy stuff on. But that's really important, right? To hug somebody, the emotional connection that comes from that. That's what I missed in COVID when I was really isolating for a period of months. Was just and it's so strange because I was not that way growing up, right? I never hugged and kissed and touched. I wasn't one of those kind of people. But I think, obviously I went through therapy that allowed me to have more intimate relationships and healthy relationships. And then I started working in Latin America, right? And if you got an office in Latin America, you come in and you kiss and hug everybody in the office every time. And so, and depending where you go, you kiss them twice, once on each cheek. And if you go to, I don't remember if it's Italy or where I was, then it's 3 times, left, right. So there, and that, I really found that is so prosperous. And well, you know what, with COVID, that wasn't happening. So there is and the other example I would give would be the NICU, the I guess they call them neonatal ICUs, where like premature babies are born. And now they ask volunteers who will come and then, put in the gloves and just put their hands in the cribs where these babies are and just hold their hand and touch them, because there really is tangible health benefits from that. Next thing on the list would be what we learned in Napoleon Hill. Those of you guys who studied the Bible, he kind of based it on that. And that is the power of the mastermind. when two or more minds are gathered together in one purpose, a greater entity is created. And I'm a huge believer in masterminds and brainstorming and groups like that. And I think they've been a huge contribution to my prosperity. Another dynamic is the mentor-mentee dynamic. Think how this is, again, it's another form of relationships, right? Where you get to a point in some area, usually your career, but it could be in sports, it could be in lots of different ways, where you become a mentor to somebody or somebody becomes a mentor to you. This is, that's really prosperous. And then two other really big elements that I think are important. One is in therapy, we call this checking things out, that you have healthy people that you're in relationship with that want the best for you, that you can check things out, because we're all crazy in certain ways, right? We all have ego problems, narcissism, fear of intimacy, addictions. There's all kind of things we face, right? And the healthier of a support structure you have around you, the better you're able to work around these issues and lead a healthy, happy, prosperous life. But you need people to check things, check things out with. And if you don't, when you become successful enough that you can pay to isolate yourself too much, you start drinking your own bathwater, right? And you just start believing all your press releases, and you become really mentally dysfunctional. Think of Kevin Spacey, right? And some of these crazy videos that he's made after these accusations against him. Think of Donald Trump and the way that he interacts with people that he doesn't feel support him or idolize him. Think of Floyd Mayweather Jr., right? Amy Winehouse, the singer, right? I was in the car the other day and they played her song, that they want to put me in rehab. Well, when she made that song, I bet it really seemed clever at the time, but listening to it now, it's so sad because this is such a tragedy, this beautiful life that ended too soon, because she didn't have people to check things out of. I feel like didn't have a strong enough supporting infrastructure around her. And as somebody who fought addiction my whole life, I recognize how important that could be. So you just need people to check things out. Like, hey, so what do you think of Susie, this new girl that I'm dating? You need somebody who'd say, what I'm really afraid of is it seems like Susie is repeating the same negative pattern that you've done in your last 5 relationships. That this is a very, codependent relationship. So you need someone who tells you that with love, not to tell you that to hurt you or harm you or because they're petty or jealous, but somebody you can trust who has your highest good in mind, and you can check things out with them. And then the other thing that I think relationships do that's so important is they serve as a thermostat for your prosperity consciousness. And I always go back to the timeless example. Jim Rohn always used to say, your income will be the average income of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I believe that translates to all areas of prosperity: your health, your relationships, your marriage, your money, all that stuff. It really will average of the support network that you created around yourself, the relationships that you're involved with. So that's really, that's why I say it's like the thermostat. You can adjust that thermostat. If it's too hot in the house, you can adjust and get the air conditioner to lower it. If it's too cold in the house, you can turn up the thermostat and raise the heat. And that's what you actually do by the people you choose to be in relationships with. So those are the benefits of this is the role that just some of the roles that relationships can play in living a prosperous life. What are the dangers to avoid? We need to talk about that because that's important too. First danger I see is people who look at a relationship to make them whole. Nobody can do that for you. You've got to make yourself whole. And the people you're in relationship with have to meet their own needs as well. And then you can come together in a greater relationship for all the parties. Another thing to watch for is the entitlement mentality, right? We just have this tendency as humans, when first time we're given something, we're grateful. And then the second time we kind of expect it. And by the third time we're demanding it, right? Watch out for that dynamic in relationships because it happens a lot. If you talk to therapists and counselors, they'll tell you that's an issue that they come across frequently in their work. Next one is huge. You're in relationship with people you're trying to save. And you have dedicated your life to saving the world. And so you have adopted all of the misfits and the orphans and the strays in your world, and you are trying to fix them, trying to save them, trying to save the world. I did that for years. It's just one of the most dysfunctional, cray-cray things you could ever do. And you can never live a prosperous life when you're doing that. And it's confusing to some people because they think, well, wait, I'm supposed to help others. This is the Christian thing to do. This is the good human thing to do. It is true. We are, a big part of prosperity is that we do choose to help others. But it's really important that your own needs are met first. And we talked about this in one of the earlier lessons where we talk about the virtues of selfishness, knowing that you can't serve from an empty cup. You need to be getting your own emotional needs met in order to help anybody else with their emotional needs. So you have to start with yourself, and you can't dedicate your life to you're trying to fix and save everybody around you. And then the last danger that I really wanted to discuss with you guys is toxic or unsafe relationships. I see Rena Romano is here, as she usually is. She's done crazy amount of work in this area with victims of incest and sexual abuse and harassment and things like that. There are people that are toxic for you. There are people that are unsafe for you. And there's two dynamics here that we have to explore, and it's really important if you want to live a prosperous life. One is recognizing the people who have harmful intent for you. They know it and you know it. It's somebody at work and they think that you're the competition for their next promotion. And so they're gossiping about you and trying to sabotage you and doing things that are harmful to you, and you know it, and they know it, right? And sometimes there's people doing that and you're not even aware of it because you wouldn't project that on another person. You wouldn't expect that somebody would be actively trying to destroy your marriage or harm your career, or is just so jealous of your success that they would try and sabotage you. But there are people out there that act that way. So you have to be mindful of that and recognize when they're out there. And then there's the most deadly, dangerous ones. And these are the people who love you and want the best for you, but they subconsciously are sabotaging you. And they don't even know they're doing it. And you don't know they're doing it because they're a trusted friend or a loving family member. But, sibling rivalry comes up, and maybe your brother or sister, you were always compared together, and they have some issues with that. So they may love you on a conscious level, but be trying to sabotage you on a subconscious level, right? And then there are people who don't realize how much negative programming that they have, and they try to sell you their limiting beliefs. And it's not just that they try to sell you their limiting beliefs, they're trying to sell you their limiting beliefs as they relate to you. Somebody give me an amen, or yo, thumbs up, if you get what I'm talking about, right? This is someone that, and there's a lot of people like this. It could be your mother. It could be your father. It could be your child. It can be your spouse. Somebody that you love and trust inherently, and you haven't mindfully looked at the situation and realized, wow, they are sabotaging me without even knowing it. And this could be as simple as the mother who tells her daughter, why would you want to be a doctor, honey? Don't you know men are usually doctors? What about becoming a nurse? Right? The mother or father who says that means it with love, but it's very, very harmful. So think of the people close to you. If you told them, hey, I have an idea for a startup company that I think we could open in Silicon Valley that would be $1 billion unicorn, what would they say to you? Would the first reaction be, are you crazy, Paula? Why would you have such a crazy idea? A single mother like you, and you think you're going to go launch $1 billion company? Why don't you be more realistic, right? When you hear somebody telling you, why don't you be more realistic? Listen, sometimes it's good advice, because if they're one of those people that we use to check things out and they are mentally healthy and they do want the best for us and blah, 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 blah. But a lot of the time, it's not. They're trying to sell you their limiting beliefs. They're trying to sell you their fears. So the thing, if you've ever been in a household with an alcoholic or a drug addict or an abusive person, you're just walking around on eggshells all day, every day. So if you grew up with a parent who was that way, abusive or dependent, you just grew up in this batshit crazy dysfunctional world that really creates long-term harm until you come to deal with and address those issues. And professional mental health counselors can really be helpful for that for you. And if you think I can't afford a psychiatrist or a psychologist, there are free mental health services from virtually every county, city, state has some kind of a safety program like that, or churches, temple, mosque, synagogue. Look around, but there's nonprofit organizations out there that offer that kind of health. Because what you do in those situations is you just mentally pretend you don't see the craziness, right? There are people who are victims of abuse who just flip this switch as a self-defense mechanism, and they don't see the craziness of the relationships that they're in. So you really got to be mindful about that. All right, so we've talked about the benefits of healthy, harmonious relationships to live in a prosperous life. I talked about some of the dangers. Now I'd like to share my thoughts on how you can have healthy, happy, harmonious relationships that enrich your life, make you more joyous, more happy, more healthy. Now, I have to issue the following disclaimer. I'm not the first person you should be seeking relationship advice from. Okay? I am not one of those people who put themselves out there as a relationship expert. Like these, the people who write books on relationships and they've been divorced 5 times. I'm not that. I don't maintain that. I have suffered from social anxiety disorders since I was a young child. So I have let me not affirm that. See, I almost affirmed something negative. In the past, I have had a hard time with intimate relationships, with letting down my guard. When you met me, the first thing you met was my security detail, right? I'm saying that metaphorically, I guess would be the word. I just had all of these protection measures to make sure I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable where I could be hurt by another. And obviously I went through years of therapy to work on that. I still, until recently, the social anxiety, I was always nervous. I didn't go to parties and dinner parties and places where I didn't know people. So those things were always a little threatening to me. So I'm telling you that right up front. I'm not presenting myself as a relationship guru. I'm just saying, as a guy who's been studying the principles of prosperity for 30 some years now, here are some things that work for me. And I will be very upfront to say I'm kind of a loner. When I put myself in isolation for the pandemic, my days didn't change that much. What didn't change is I wasn't doing my cardio in the gym. I wasn't doing my workout in the gym. So I wasn't interacting with people there. But I'm kind of a loner anyway, right? So I'm a writer. I'm happy when I'm hunched over my laptop in my lonely writer's garret, working on my next book. But the pandemic especially really demonstrated to me how much I need relationships, like we all do. So some thoughts. First and foremost, you need to be your own priority. You have got to be your own. Thanks for all the thumbs up, everybody. Yes, this is, you have to get your own needs met first, or you can't help anyone else. That's why we always say, the best way to help the poor and exploited and downtrodden people is not to be one of them, right? So you need to be your own priority. The second thing I would tell you is set boundaries. I don't like limits, but I love boundaries. So you set boundaries where you just let people know that there are certain ways that they cannot talk to you. If they want to be in your life, that's a line they can't cross. that there are boundaries. There are certain ways they have to behave around you. And that if they cross that line, they cannot be in your life, or you're going to severely limit the amount of time that they have in your life. And you have to be willing to do that. And if you've read Radical Rebirth, there are cases where I've told people, you can never talk to I don't tell them, order them this. I'm just saying, I'm telling them, if you want to be prosperous, you can never talk to your mother again. Your mother is so toxic, so hurtful for you, so harmful for you, that any interaction you have with her will only make your life miserable. And you have to set a boundary that she's not allowed in your life. Or some people you just have to, there are people that you might go to dinner with every week and you realize, I just think I'm kind of on this path going this way, and they're on a path going down in a different direction. And maybe we only ought to have dinner once a month instead of once a week. And you will limit your exposure to certain people, right? So that's setting boundaries. And I think that's a really important part of prosperous living. The other rule that I make for a relationship with me, and I would suggest you do the same, is there's no fighting dirty, right? A boxing match has rules. There's no rabbit punches. You can't hit somebody below the belt. Even a mixed martial arts in the cage, there are certain rules that you're not allowed to do. That's fighting dirty if you break the rules. You've got to run your relationships the same way, right? So I was talking to an example on one of my podcasts where a guy I play softball with broke up with his boyfriend, and then one of his teammates started seeing the boyfriend, right? And he was very jealous about that because he turns out he still had feelings for his ex. But he had broke up with the ex. So of course the ex went on with his life, and his teammate felt, well, they broke up. We like each other. Let's see where it goes. So this was creating this big disturbance on the team I was on then. So I was talking to this guy and saying, you can't do this. It's, you broke up with this guy. If they two are happy together, you should celebrate that. You should be happy that they're happy. And he said, you don't understand. I was at my father's funeral. While I was burying my father, these two were kissing at some bar. What is that? That's just fighting dirty, right? That's an example of that, how you use an emotional manipulation technique. The fact that his father had died, he was using this to castigate this teammate who, was having a relationship with his ex. It wouldn't have mattered whether they were kissing at the bar at that time, whether his father was being buried or not. That was just fighting dirty. And when you get in a relationship and the other person is fighting dirty, that relationship can never work. So that's when we talk about setting boundaries, that's an example, another one of the kind of boundaries you have to set. And then here's what I think is the most important dynamic in terms of creating healthy, prosperous, harmonious relationships, is that you understand the work reward ratio, right? That I think it's very proportionate. In other words, you have a relationship with the pool man who cleans your pool. He comes once every week or 2 weeks, and you give him or her a friendly greeting, and they give you a friendly greeting, and you pay them on time, and you're respectful to them. And then at Christmas or Hanukkah, maybe you give them a $100 gift certificate from Amazon. That's all the work that relationship requires. And what you get out of that is you get a pool man who does a good job keeping your pool clean, right? But a husband or a wife, romantic relationship, this takes work. Marriages take an extraordinary amount of work. And the more joy, bliss, happiness, reward you get from a relationship, the more work is required to nurture that relationship. And so when I looked at my self-destructive patterns, working with my therapist, I recognized, wow, I have this fear of intimacy. So I use any excuse that comes up early in a relationship to end that relationship, because then I don't have to worry about the intimacy thing, right? So I could say, well, how can I work in the day, they work the night shift, they would be getting up when I'm going to bed. It'll never work, right? I just instantly find, they're a Democrat, he's a Republican, she's a Democrat. It'll never work, right? We just look for these things. No, if real relationships take an extraordinary amount of work, and you have to be willing to put in that work if you want to get the real benefits out of that. So that's my thoughts on that. So now, I'd like to, for those of you guys who want to support the work, Paula, if you'd put up the website, and then don't go anywhere, because I'm going to give you your assignments in just a minute. But here's the website for you guys listening or on the YouTube. It's randygage.com/go. Please support the work in that way, whatever it means for you. Like I say, even when you send $1 or $5, it shows me, okay, this means something to me. I want to support this work. And those of you who do it on a bigger way, I'm very grateful, and I love to see the prosperity that you're circulating. And then also, it means sharing the broadcast, telling your friends about it, creating watch parties, subscribing, rating the podcast on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to it, liking, subscribing to the channel on YouTube. Prosperity TV is the name of the Prosperity channel, and just telling your friends about it. And, my vision, I told you what my vision is. What's your vision? Do you see the vision of this prosperity, all these prosperity warriors circulating this message each week, this group of high prosperity conscious people getting together and brainstorming on the principles of prosperity, free enterprise, generosity, and circulation. That's the page that's on there now, randygage.com/prosperity-livestream. Each week we post when the next show will be, and that's an archive there of all the previous shows are there. All right, let's talk about your assignments. I'm going to give you 3 assignments this week. Assignment number 1 is make an actual written list of who are the 5 people you spend the most time with. The Jim Rohn equation, right? You're married, your spouse is probably one of the 5. You work in a cubicle next door to someone 8 hours a day, that's probably one of your 5. I might be one of your 5. If you're listening to every podcast and you watch YouTube and you're here every Saturday, great. Or it might be Tucker Carlson on Fox, or it may be Don Lemon on CNN, or it may be your buddy that you play, Warcraft 5 hours a night with. But who are those people? Who are the 5 people? Actually make the list. And then number 2 assignment is evaluate those 5 people with the criteria that we talked about here today. Are these people empowering you? Are they speaking to the higher parts of your consciousness, or are they speaking to the lower part of your consciousness? Are they pulling you up or are they dragging you down? And then finally, assignment number 3 is make a plan for improvement in this area. So you might say, okay, I work with Becky and she is so negative about everything. She bitches and moans and complains all day long. I'm next to her for 8 hours a day. Well, you recognize, okay, one of my 5 people is really toxic. So I need to counter program for this. You know, or you may be in a marriage or relationship that's really dysfunctional and you might need to address that. And you guys may need to get into couples therapy, or you may need to look at other options, but you need to be realistic about that. And then who are the people you go to for inspiration and motivation and guidance and advice? Do you have a mentor? Do you mentor others? You know, where are you at in all of this? So that's your 3 assignments. List your 5 people that are the most influential in your life right now. Evaluate how they serve or don't serve you based on what we've talked about here in this lesson. And then number 3, make a plan for improvement. And then be ready, because I'll be looking for volunteers next week who will share their homework. All right. So next week, for those of you keeping score, I think it's going to be at 11 a.m., but I don't know. I'm going to see. I'll go back. I'm going to read all the chat messages and see what people say on YouTube and see what I hear back from the podcast peeps. Right now, tentative time is 11 a.m., but watch the website, watch my social media, and you'll know for sure. And the topic we're going to talk about is making life work. And that's going to be a really fun one. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for participating. You all go out and have an amazing day. Peace.